comes up to a YouTube video.
It's a pain, but
It comes up to a YouTube video and says you gotta watch the video. You can leave the video run and go back and do the test.
I don't even know.
So any license questions, is that one? Or did we-
But
did we
remember,
miss that?
remember, it is your own responsibility.
Right,
Yes.
so, it's not
I will
terrible, just don't
answer
wait till
questions,
too far,
Yeah.
the last
No, I
one, 'cause
tried
the
to do
hardest
it
part,
like
I
last weekend.
signed it quick and easy, you just never know where all parole is with where he's at or whatever, so, just so you're aware. Does anybody else have anything? Alright, then we'll turn it over to Dan Williams. He is the guy who has been doing the county study. He's here to field your questions, so. You want chair or you want to? Okay, it's all up to you. I was hoping for, I would thought we got a bigger turnout, to be honest with you. You did what you did.
You guys okay if I take my mask off?
Yeah.
Thank you. Um, So, as Eva said, I'm the one who is doing the EMS study for the county. And I know there's been lots of things that have been said. I know there's lots of things that are being written. Probably 10% of it's truthful. Because I don't even know what I'm gonna completely write yet for my report, so I don't know anybody else can speculate on what is going to be recommended or what we're gonna actually come up with as some outcomes. So, I wanted to come tonight to give you an opportunity to ask any questions that you might have about the study, how we're doing it. If you have concerns, I'm really interested in your concerns. And again, as I keep telling everybody that I talk to, the only way that I can write a good report is to get good information. So it's important for me, if you have something on your mind, throw it out. And I'll tell you, if I can answer it, I will. If I can't, I won't. If I haven't made up my mind yet, or I don't know exactly what we're gonna do in that particular area yet, I will tell you that as well. You know, I'm not, I'm still, I've got some parts of the report kind of written. And because there's certain things that are kind of obvious, and some of the background information to support some of the things that we're talking about and to support the problem. You know, we all know that the problem that we have is not enough people anymore. And that's a big concern, and it's a big concern for everybody. There are some people who don't seem to be concerned, but you know, I think they need to be. So I don't have any type of an agenda tonight to go, you know, 1 point, 2, 3, 4, 5, but I'll talk about anything that you're interested in talking about. I was in the state EMS office for 5 years. I was a director down there in the middle, probably I think 2008 to 10 or something, or to 2006 to 10, something like that. I was there for a while. So if you do have some questions, not much has changed actually, sadly. So I can maybe help you with any things you have, any questions about what's going on at the state as well. So I look at this as this is your meeting, not mine. So please feel free to ask what you want to or need to ask, and I'll tell you what I can. I know there's lots of questions, so somebody's got to start.
Oh, come on.
Come on, Naomi.
No, I just wanna know how far up is the rabbit hidden up your ass, that's what I want.
Oh.
It's one of those things, we know what the solution is, it's more people, it's money, and
Yeah.
and how do we get to that point without, you know, everybody knows that, our townships know that, everybody knows that.
Yeah, I mean, the people that I have talked to, and I've talked to all of the county supervisors. I've talked to all of or I haven't talked to, but I've got information from all of the town chairmen and the people who run the individual townships. I sent them emails with a questionnaire. I got all of them back, which is always a good sign. You know, it shows that they're interested. And well, the rabbit isn't that far.
Good.
My voice isn't that high.
Right.
I mean, there are only a certain number of solutions that you can come up with when we get to the point where we're at. And, you know, I did a study in Dodge County, 8 or 9 months ago. Work at Beaver Dam Fire right now, work with La Pond Fire right now. Who else? 3 or 4 other places as well. And it's the same problem essentially, but the solutions are different almost everywhere. Because of either where they are right now with their circumstances, or where they're going to be 6 months from now with their circumstances, or they're so at the beginning stage they don't even have any circumstances. I would say, you know, you're well along the way of having, you know, a good program here. You really are. You know, I think you from what I've seen and what I've read and gone through a few things, the care that you provide is really good, and you should be very proud of that, but you can't continue to do it on air. And that's kind of where we are right now. So who can support this from a financial standpoint? Well, nobody can. That's the part of the problem. Nobody's willingly wants to do this. There are some things that we can do from a organizational standpoint, however we decide to recommend how this would be set up, that allows for certain things to be done, I'll say, unconventionally. I don't know how many people understand what the levy limits are for in the state of Wisconsin. I certainly won't give you a levy limit lecture because that would really put you to sleep. But suffice it to say that a town has a certain number of dollars that they can use. And under normal circumstances, they can't exceed that number for any real reason. The one exception to that is if there is, and I'm not advocating that this is where I'm headed, but I'm just giving you all the solutions. If we were to create a county-run system that was actually run out of the county government, and we covered the entire borders of Green Bay County, then the county would be allowed to exceed the levy limit for the budget. Because again, the first few years of a budget like this are going to be, you know, daunting, to say the least. And it's going to be personnel. Personnel is all when you start getting into personnel full time and things like that, it becomes very expensive. Personnel is the most expensive commodity that you have. About 80% of what the budget is personnel related. So you can see right away when you start adding full-time people, you know, you have it already you have some full-time people, so you experience it to some degree already. But we're talking about something that's probably going to be much greater than what your current situation is. So that's one option that can be dealt with.
I personally, I'm Princeton area, and the city of Princeton has financed our ambulance service up until the day that Berlin bought our ambulance service. So I would love, as a resident, to find out a way that we can tax the hell out of the town of Princeton, the town of McCann, and the town of St. Marie, who have not had to pay a penny the whole time that it was our ambulance service. So, and to have them sit in the meetings and sit there and go, well, this is why we would like it to go countywide, because we don't want to be the bad guy. The county can raise the tax, we don't want to do that. So it's frustrating that we haven't had equal pay all around. So I know, I'm glad that's one area. I guess my concern for a full countywide is we know Marquezan is bucking the system. So are you still able to do that even if you don't have Marquezan on board?
Yeah, there's some ways to be creative.
Okay.
To get that done.
Okay.
You know, and probably some errors that in opinions of what is available and what's not available, and the way that things are kind of being done right now is that, you know, we need to try to build the strongest system that we possibly can. And you know, like in Princeton's a good example. There's still people who work on the service there, and not that there's a lot of them any longer, but no matter what we come up with as recommendations, we're still going to want to use those people in one shape or another. And we'll be laying out in very, very specific details of how we think things should work and how people can be utilized. let's just, for example, say we're gonna recommend some full-time people. My guess is that some of you who have not been working full-time would still like to be able to do some things with the service. And the way that we create things like that is that, let's just say, I'm picking a number, this is not a number, I'm just picking a number. Let's say that we recommend 10 full-time people, or 10, I'm gonna refrain from saying people, because it's 10 full-time positions. Because positions are really different than people, and I'll explain why in a second. So maybe we say that out of those 10 full-time positions, we think that 7 of them should be 7 people. But the other 3 positions should be utilized from the people that we have in the community already. We probably, so that those people, if that were the case, if those people would become county employees, so there would be the potential for some benefit. Full-time people would get the full benefits, part-time people would get, depending upon the number of hours that are worked in a year, would be eligible for potentially retirement, healthcare, things like that. But what we might wanna say, so we have 20 people who we still really wanna do a lot of stuff with the service, so we block out days in 12-hour blocks or 8-hour block, whatever works for people. I'm never hard down on that part of it, because you do what it works. So now you have, instead of those 7 people and 10 positions, you have 7 people and you have 10 other people to fill those other 3 positions. So, I always try to see if that's a solution that can work first, because I think, I hate to come into a situation where everybody is just so fed up that whatever happens, they're just gonna disappear. You have that scenario, or you have the scenario of, where people wanna be involved. They wanna continue to be involved. Maybe it's establishing EMR groups throughout, in certain areas that are hard to get to. Or, again, they wanna just be on the service and they wanna take some of those shifts. And sometimes that takes a lot of people to fill that out. That's the feeling it out after we make some recommendations of where we will be with coming up with that kind of a system. But, so those are kind of some of the things that we're looking at from the perspective of a personnel standpoint. Want to be able to utilize as many as we can who are interested, and there might be some restrictions on where you are, things like that, because the benefit of having we select the locations, and the benefit of those locations will be that the people will be there. So they go out the door when the pager goes off. They don't, when the pager goes off, get in their car, drive to a station, get in the vehicle, then go to the call. And we all know that takes time to do those things. And if we can cover a much bigger area when people are in one location where the vehicle is, so as soon as the pager goes off, a minute later you're out the door. So those are some of the advantages of doing some of those kinds of things. So that was kind of a long response to your
No, that's okay.
to your question, but hopefully it sheds some light on some ways that you can do some of these things.
Yep. Financially, how are we as a service doing in our billing? Are we billing what we should be billing? Is there room for improvement on that?
Well, here's an example. You can bill whatever you want. See, it's laughing already. You can bill whatever you want. The government, which is a significant percentage of your, I looked at your payer dynamics the other day, and your payer mix is not all that great, but it's better than a lot of areas I've seen. But so, let's just use the $1,000 as an example. Okay, so we bill out a call for $1,000, and it's a Medicare patient. So we know that we're gonna lose 20% right off the bat of whatever they decide they're gonna pay.
Right.
Well, let's say it's an ALS call that you used pretty much everything you had. You're gonna get about $290 for that $1,000 bill, give or take. If you have more mileage, it'll be a little bit more, but that's kind of the range that it will be. So you can see clearly that, there's a disparity in what's charged and what you're able to collect. So then if you, if that patient also has, medical assistance, you might get another $20 someplace, and that's about it.
Right.
If the person has insurance, you might get the whole $1,000. But most insurance companies now are starting to model the Medicare model, because they're saying, hey, you'll take it for those patients. Well, you don't have a choice. You don't have a choice to take it or not. A long time ago, the Medicare forced people to accept assignment. What accept assignment means is, it means that whatever they're gonna pay you, you are willing to accept it. So, and it's not very much. So that's, but like I say, you can get some private pays. My opinion, typically private pays are no pays. If you get 20% of private pays that pay anything, you're lucky. So you're really hoping for those people who have good insurance. And sometimes, you know, I live in Door County, and it's a high tourist area, and you have tourists here, and typically people who come to high tourist areas typically have money and insurance and things like that. So you have probably a little bit higher ability to collect on insurance claims in this area than maybe down the road 50 miles. So yeah, the money part of it, so could you bill more? Sure, you could bill more, but you're probably not gonna get any more. One of the terms that has been floated around, as I've learned during talking to multitudes of people, is that that Theta is covering the shortfall of Berlin EMS. Well, I said to Jody the other day, I said, we have to quit calling it a shortfall, because it's not a shortfall. Yes, it is in one sense, but it's really not a shortfall. What it really is, it's a mandated write-off. It's big, that's a big difference. Shortfall would yeah, because the implication has been, that I've heard, is that Berlin EMS squanders the money, they piss it away, for lack of a better term. They do this, they do that, and they're just not very good at managing their budget, and that's why Theta has to always step in and help out. Well, if you know the history, and you guys probably know it better than I do, Theta, and before Theta was Ascension, was it Ascension?
CHN.
Okay, yeah, that's right. And, you know, they did it because they wanted the service to be there and available to them so that they could go on interfacility transports. I mean, that was the underlying, they thought it was a good thing to cover the service and to have it be something that was good in the community. But the underlying, you know, maybe not message that was mentioned early on was is that we want people here so we can transfer our patients to the valley. And it's worked out well. And so for that, they were willing to pay a percentage to keep the service afloat. And, but again, really what that is not, it's not bad management of money, it's not bad management of billing. Your billing company does a good job. I read lots of reports over the last couple of days to see, you know, all of the different pieces of the puzzle to see where you might be able to jump in and get something more. I think they're doing a good job. I have to do a little bit more digging. I think there's a couple areas where I had a few questions, but I would say basically they do a good job. Even if the questions that I had went the other way, it wouldn't be enough to make a big difference anyhow. It was just some things I think they could build differently. But, you know, we can have that conversation later on, and I'll make comments about that when I do the report as well. But I will show those types of examples. I will show all of those Medicare and Medicaid and insurance types. Okay, here's the cost of the claim, or here was the bill, and here's what this, if you have this scenario, here's what it paid. If you have this scenario, this is what it paid. And that's the reason why every year there's a mandated write-off that has to take place. And it's unfortunate that the term shortfall was started to be used, and it's become common now, and we are trying to change that verbiage a little bit so that people understand that shortfall, yes, but not because of lack of proper management, fiscal management. So hopefully we'll get that point across, and we'll show several examples of why billing is tough for anybody. You know, and there's a sweet number of calls and patients and bills and things like that where you kind of start to get closer to making some money. you know, I used to go round and round with my county administrator, who kept always wanting us to raise the rates, and I'd say, well, no, it's not worth it, because you just have more to write off then at the end of the year, and all those types of things, and then we talked about interfacility transports, you know, and he said, oh, we can make a lot of money with interfacility transports. I said, well, as much as I think we should be doing them, you don't make any more money, you just lose less. So that's what you have to be thinking about, is you lose on every single call. You just lose less on interfacility, and the only reason why you lose less on interfacility is because of the mileage. It's plain and simple. So, yeah, I will be looking at the billing numbers, and we'll be looking at the charges and stuff like that. I will probably have a couple recommendations to boost some of the charges, because if we know that they're gonna pay, again, picking a number, if we know they're gonna pay $10 for per mile, there's no sense charging $8, because we're leaving $2 a mile on the table.
Right.
So I'll look into all of that and make sure that we get you right where you need to be for all of the current revenue potential that you can get at least. What else?
If we do go countywide, is there a way to utilize the volunteers without them becoming county employees?
It will be difficult.
I just ask because I'm already a county employee and I would not be able to
And that means we would lose
volunteer.
her
Yeah.
because of, it'd be overtime.
Yeah, and that is one of those pieces of the puzzle that if you're a county employee and you work in another department, anything over 40 hours has to be paid at time and a half, and then if any hours over here do count. There are some ways to deal with that, where they don't necessarily have that outcome. But I'll have to do some further checking just to be sure. The rules have changed, there's been some lawsuits that have changed some of the dynamics there. Because the problem is, even if you wanted to volunteer, you can't even do that.
Yep.
Because you can't volunteer in the same work area
Yep.
that you, now, what do you do for the county?
Data entry for Health and Human Services.
Okay, so you're not working for the EMS, there is no EMS.
There is no EMS.
So that means that you could volunteer if you wanted to, you paid nothing. But I'll check on all of that. But yeah, that is a potential stumbling block if you work for the government.
Fire department, so I can stay on radar, so I was gonna say.
Sorry, guys. I'll first respond, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, that's where the EMR piece of the puzzle might, be beneficial too, is depending upon where you live and things like that, there might be even more valuable and, you might be more valuable for the system doing that as you are doing, working on a shift. Just because you're gonna fill a hole in the county.
We're lacking EMR, so you can join our group.
I really should.
Take the leftover.
I should just come over now, Annie, I have nobody during the day already, so I might as well.
So what else?
That's all I got. Since you guys all looked at me to start it, I started it.
She got the ball rolling pretty well, I would say.
I didn't know what the first question asked was other than that, so.
Well, mine was the rabbit up the ass, so.
Pardon?
I know who I'm not gonna let ask questions.
Yeah, see, so this is valuable
For
for
you,
you.
use them all up.
Sad is they just look at me right away, I'm like, all right. Done and done. Good thing I got this on.
Do you know how much longer of a process this will be, that, like,
A
if
finish
you're-
line?
Yeah.
A
I
finish
know
line to
you-
the,
I know you still have to go present to the board and whatever, but like how much,
Where are we headed, what
Yeah,
will we get?
like,
Timeline.
timeline?
Yeah,
So I can start getting you.
what is it, September 15th, is that the second?
18th, next Tuesday,
September 14th is the second Monday.
The Tuesday,
next Tuesday,
So it's September 15th.
the third Tuesday.
no, August,
Third? Oh, wait,
August
what?
18th.
August?
That's
Of September,
of September.
yeah.
Oh,
We were gonna meet
Third
on.
Tuesday is the 15th.
Okay. I will be doing a presentation on the 15th to the county board. We were gonna try to do something on the 18th, but we're not going to be able to do that now. And
Nice
there's,
to know.
huh?
Nice to know, we didn't know that.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm here. And the reason for that is I'm not quite prepared to give some of the pieces of the puzzle yet. And I know that if I give that presentation, I'll be locked into certain things because I've done this long enough to know that the first time you give a presentation to city council, county boards, things like that, the only thing they remember are the first numbers you give them. The first everything you give them is the only thing that they will remember forever. So if you came in and said, okay, we're gonna do this and it's gonna cost $300,000, that's the number they'll remember. So if you come in and you say, well, really, once we got into it a little bit more, it's probably gonna be more like $500,000, they're still, well, what happened to 300,000? You said on the, so I was not prepared to get boxed into a corner, on the 18th, so I asked for another month and they gave it to me. So, cause then I'll be pretty much virtually completed with my report and it'd be in a draft form at that time. So it will really start to come together very quickly now in the next, couple of weeks. Once we give it to the county board and make that presentation, and like I say, I'll be giving all those scenarios about the payer mix and why it's not great and why it costs money, and there's not an EMS service in the world that's making money except for the private providers, and they only do it on volume. You know, they just have a lot of volume, they don't pay people very well, they continually have people coming and going, and that becomes problems. Those are the kinds of things that we're also gonna try to avoid if we get to that point. So it is a change that, you know, I would just want to be better prepared to have good answers and then have them sort of be, you know, the final answer. Not to say that some things won't change a little bit, but, you know, there are still the main questions you better be pretty close on. Yes, sir.
So, I apologize for coming in late, you
No, no
maybe have
problem.
answered this, but, are you tasked with presenting a county program to the county? Or are you tasked with providing options to the county?
The second one.
Okay,
I'm tasked with providing the best options for Green Lake County. I will probably be offering probably 4 options, maybe even 5, kind of split on one.
and you know how well that's gonna go, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
Okay.
But I mean, I'll have a first option, a second option, you know, I'll have, this is what makes the most sense to me. Here's what, you know, if you really are in a money crunch and you have to go here, you might be on option C. Or B is somewhere in the middle, you might wanna look at that one. But, yeah, I know there's always harm in that, in giving them options, because then that's almost as bad as giving them information on the first night and not having it be accurate. So, and I may change that. I may only, after having some conversations with the county administrator, we may just choose to provide one option. You know, I think that, you know, the county is paying for the study. They are interested, I would say, in providing the service. I think there's some real value in them doing that. As a taxpayer, yes, the taxes will go up, but once you have it countywide, it's equally distributed. And there'll be different formulas, you know, there's like 5 different formulas you can use. Sometimes they can just be as simple as a per capita, so each house pays XYZ on $100,000 of value, but you know, that type of thing. Then there's the property value, then there's the assessed value, and then there's all kinds of other pieces of the puzzle. You know, call volume into those areas, square miles, you know, a lot of different things that you can factor into the scenario. Some of them probably make some sense. Some of them, you know, probably aren't fair. You know, certain areas of the county have a higher assessed value because of the property values that are in certain areas, and you have other areas that 90% of the township is farm field. So I understand completely what a budget of, you know, if you have a township that's 90% farm field, $100,000 boost into their budget probably doubles their budget for the year. So we have to be, you know, conscious of that and make sure that we don't, you know, kill people up front with what this is gonna cost. You know, I think that, the equipment, my assessment of the equipment so far is there's good equipment. And my assumption will be that that'll all be blended into some sort of an agreement where if it's the county, they will take ownership of it. So there's, yeah, I mean, this is not a cookie cutter type situation. There are a lot of loose ends that would have to be brought to the table and finalized, and some agreements that would have to be made, probably intergovernmental agreements with townships, things like that. But it's not, unsurmountable. It's I've done probably over 100 of intergovernmental agreements with different agencies. You can write them any way you want because there's no specific template for them. You just, whatever that community needs between that and the service is what you try to work out the best. But I think here, what we're trying to do is create, a good quality service, one that's timely, one that everybody in the county, every single corner of the county can expect to get good quality service. Now, the timeliness factor, that's a little bit harder. We'd all like to have a 5-minute response time, but we also know that the various corners of the county, there's no way that we can do that. That's where, again, an EMR group or something like that might, different groups might be very beneficial to getting those response times in a normal standpoint. But again, we're gonna cut, if you realize, if we do go with all of these things that we're thinking about, we're gonna cut 5 to 10 minutes off the response time right out of the gate by just having people in the right spot and in this position to respond right away. You can do a lot of things with that 10 minutes, I'll tell you. Makes a big difference. So, what else?
You
See,
don't
if you
know
would've
me,
been here,
you
you
don't know me
would've
from
all
anybody,
been-
but I'm just throwing this out there. I love your words about we don't wanna kill anybody, you're
Yeah.
right. We do wanna cause some harm to get our call volume up.
Yeah.
So if we shock them a little bit, it kind of offsets, right? Is that, am I being recorded? Cause then we probably wanna
Well, I think,
blame Chen for that.
I think there is actually a recording of it.
See,
So somebody was starting to say something.
no, I just said if he was here first, you guys all would've looked at him instead of me for the first question.
I'm not
that's
gonna
all.
let him ask questions either.
So the night that you're presenting this, is that the night that they vote?
I don't know how they're gonna do it. I guess one of the things you could tell by looking at the by looking at the agenda is if it's discussion of
Right.
or this, or,
Presentation
no.
Take action.
Consideration of. Consideration of means they can vote. Discussion of means they can't. So if you see consideration of, then there's a likelihood that you could vote that night. If it's just discussion of, then maybe not. I mean, that doesn't mean that somebody can't, ask for, a leave of Robert's rules and still make a motion to approve it.